In this video, I'm going to share all the steps I took to upgrade my RV refrigerator's cooling system with a better, much more powerful cooling system. If you have an old fridge that's not getting as cold as you'd like, or if you just want to keep your ice cream rock hard, and for a fraction of the cost of buying a new one, stay tuned. I'm Jesse, and you're watching Outside is Calling.
Intro video.
If you've spent much time in an RV, you've probably found that RV refrigerators don't keep things real cold. Imagine that you're in the middle of the wilderness on a summer day beside the lake and you get to enjoy that nice ice cold, rock hard ice cream. For us, it's more than just having cold ice cream. For us, having a cold and reliable refrigerator is a necessity. We carry insulin on board, and insulin is a life-sustaining medicine that has to stay cold or it goes bad. If you're new to our channel, we live and travel full-time in our RV, and we don't have a home base like somewhere else to keep our medicine cold. While we do stay at RV parks time to time, we spend as much of our time as possible off-grid, unplugged, out in the wilderness, enjoying the outdoors. A great example of that is our 3-month trip through Baja, Mexico. We visited some amazing places in Baja. Most of them were not in RV parks, we weren't plugged in anywhere, and yet we were able to have the comforts of home, in large part from amenities such as having a good RV refrigerator. Our fridge is now 19 years old, however, and it's not keeping things as cold as we need them to be. I did contact Norcold initially to find out what is the expected life of an RV fridge. They never would tell me like, hey, we expect 10 years, 15, 20 years. But after doing a lot of homework, it seems like 6 to 10 years is kind of the expected lifespan. We're at 19 years, so we're well beyond the useful life expectancy. It's time to either change out our fridge with a new fridge or install a new cooling unit. Before we rip out our old fridge and begin the upgrade, let's first talk quickly about how RV refrigerators work. In recent years, things are changing and a lot of RV companies are going to residential fridges, but for the most part, if you have an older RV or are looking at an RV, there's a good chance it will have an RV refrigerator that is powered by absorption cooling. That's what we have. We have a Norcold 1200, but essentially it uses the absorption process to create the cooling effect that makes our freezer ice cold and our fridge cool. Let's not get too deep in the details because you can quickly get overwhelmed with all the parts and pieces of how an absorption fridge works, but just kind of like the basics, you have a liquid inside of the system. It's ammonia and hydrogen and water, and there's different phases that this liquid goes through to create the cooling effect. However, the absorption unit, it uses heat to move the liquid through the system, and it's a much slower process, and it takes a long time for the fridge to initially get cool. You may have heard that if you are using your RV recreationally, that you want to turn your RV fridge on a day or two ahead of time before you travel, and that's because this is that type of system where it takes a couple days to get cool. Once it's cold, it works just fine, but it's a much slower system. Also, with the absorption style fridges, your RV really needs to be as level as possible. If your RV is a little bit off level, that can actually affect the whole process of the absorption cycle. If you want to know even more about how the absorption process or cycle works, a great friend of mine, Tom Morton, and his wife Kate did a similar video for an install on a different fridge for their RV. I'll put a link to that here above so you can check that out if you want to know more or see their install as well. They did a very good job, very thorough covering their fridge. I'm going to do a similar video for the Norcold 1200, and between the two videos you hopefully will get a good idea on how these systems are installed and how they work. The upgrade we're doing today is going to be a compressor type. This is the same type of cooling system as you would find in a residential fridge. We're actually kind of in a way taking our RV fridge and turning it into a residential fridge. That's because the system we're installing has a compressor, which again, there's a liquid, there's a coolant that's moving through tubes and whatnot and exchanging the heat. However, there's a compressor that's pushing that coolant through versus heat that's making it go through. To keep things simple, there's a lot of advantages to having a compressor type cooling system, and here are a few of the reasons why we've chosen to do this upgrade and go to a compressor type system. So for starters, the compressor type HVAC cooling system for our fridge cools much faster than an absorption style fridge. And it's also less of an impact with how level your RV is. It's still ideal to get your RV as level as you can. It'll make it work even better, but if your RV is not perfectly level, this system will still function very well. And one of my favorite things about this upgrade we're doing, we have solar panels on our roof, and so we have 12 volt solar power coming into our battery bank, and the new system we're installing uses 12 volt DC power. So essentially we have unlimited power between our solar panels and our lithium battery bank that will power our RV fridge. Another great reason why you might consider installing a new cooling unit versus replacing your fridge, in a lot of RVs like ours, if we wanted to install a new fridge, we'd have to remove the windshield in order to get the old fridge out and the new fridge in. And on top of that, a new fridge is about $3,600 for a Norcold 1200. The cooling unit we're putting in is about $1,100. So substantial price savings by doing the cooling unit and substantially less work by not having to remove the windshield. If you were to install a residential or a different type of fridge into your existing fridge area, you're still gonna have to remove the windshield, and you might have to do some additional cabinetry or other woodworking modifications because oftentimes the refrigerators are different sizes. And one other great benefit of the cooling system we're installing, this is from Dutch Aire, and they offer a 3-year warranty if anything were to fail after installing it, which is pretty cool. You have peace of mind knowing it's a quality product, it's gonna last a while. And I'm also excited because this new compressor type of fridge is supposed to do very well in hot and humid temps. We live in Florida. Well, we have family in Florida. We visit Florida very often, so we typically find ourselves in hot, humid areas more often than we'd like. And so this should be an ideal fridge that will continue to keep things cool even when it gets hot or humid outside. But enough chit chat, let's go ahead and get to the upgrade of our 19-year-old Norcold 1200 cooling unit. For this install, it's ideal to have a helper on hand. If you have a large fridge like ours, it's pretty darn heavy. You want to go over to your propane tank and turn the propane all the way off at the source, because we're going to be opening the propane line at the RV fridge shortly. Also turn off your RV water pump and any water supplying the RV. And you can see this is the water line coming into the ice maker. This is the heat exchanger, and then the discharge of our defroster drains into this pan. Over here is the solenoid control valve for the propane gas line, and right up here is the control panel, all the brains of the RV fridge. Here's a few quick close-ups. This is the water valve, which takes water to the ice maker. Next up is the heat exchanger. And then over here on the far side, you'll see this is where the absorption style unit takes the heat and heats up the tubing. Lastly, we have our gas propane solenoid valve. What you can also see over here, kind of tucked in the side, are the power cables. This is our 120 volt AC power coming over to the fridge. Here I'm disconnecting the 120 volt AC power. Our RV has 2 AC power sources powering the fridge, so remove each of the wires and I'll set them to the side. Disconnect the RV's 12 volt power supply and wrap some electrical tape around the positive wire to protect it from shorting and so you'll know which wire is which later. I'm just going to clean up the wires best I can and kind of organize the area. After getting the wires more or less situated, we'll head over and begin disconnecting the propane gas line. Again, make sure your gas is shut off at the tank. So now before I begin disconnecting any wires, I'm taking some photos. It only takes a second. It's quick and easy if you have a smartphone, and this will save you a lot of headaches down the road. I've learned this lesson several times. Those white wires will get mixed up, or the black wire, this and that. I also like to take some tape and mark the wires. Ideally not with a black marker on black tape, but hey, use what you have and make this as organized as possible because it will save you a lot of work and guessing later on. Now heading inside, I'll remove the 4 screw cover trim pieces. And then once I get all of these trim pieces and the little edges removed, I can then go and begin removing the screws that hold the fridge in place. And you'll see, although I thought it was time to remove the fridge now, I forgot one crucial important step. Back outside, at the back side of the fridge, different RV manufacturers will have one or more screws that screw this area down into the wood as well. And now, as you can see, the fridge is moving. We are able to get it out, but there was some double-sided tape, and that tape made it tough for me to break the seal and get the unit to kind of start to slide out. I ended up having to go down below with a pry bar and break the bottom seal free. And once I was able to break that bottom seal free, then the unit slid out relatively easily. So here I've only pulled the unit out a few inches. We're going to stop and go back to the outside of the RV and look and make sure that nothing is binding or pulling free. Make sure that all the wires are disconnected that are attached to the RV and nothing is binding. Back inside, I continue to work the fridge out of the hole and in towards the RV. Our RV, you'll see, is kind of a tight space though, and it made it very difficult, and this is where that second person really comes in. It was way heavier than we anticipated. So now, mission complete. The fridge is out, my wife Jenny is trapped in the back, and I'm free to go do whatever I want. We have tile floors, and once we got the unit down onto a carpet, we were able to easily slide the unit where we needed to. With a 5/16 bit, we're going to remove 8 freezer screws and 7 refrigerator screws. For the freezer, there's 4 of these screws in each of the freezer compartments, and then down below in the fridge, there's 7 of these screws that you'll find them all spaced throughout the fins, the metal fins that are in the top area of the fridge. Now I can lay the fridge face down, which will give me easy access to the back of the fridge for the next steps of the project. This is also a good chance to inspect the refrigerator compartment area, looking for signs of any rotten wood, any damage, and also just a good chance to give it a good cleaning. Here I'm removing the defrost pan from the back. There's just one screw holding this on. After disconnecting the igniter wire, there are 3 screws holding the circuit board cover on. After removing the 3 screws, the cover can carefully be slid off. At any time now, the 3 screws holding the LP gas valve can be removed, and currently I am removing the 2 screws that go to the ice maker. There's a couple of spacers here, and these spacers is important to save these to reuse when we reinstall this later. Next, I disconnect the 4 heating element wires from the board. These are 2 black and 2 yellow pairs that go to the old heating unit, which we will no longer be using. These wires get pushed off to the side out of the way, Right over here at the top left of the circuit board is a grounding screw where the green wires terminate, which has to be removed. Next, I remove the screws holding the cooling fans in place. These will not be reused either, as the new cooling unit has its own new fan already installed. Go ahead and disconnect the cooling fans, and then remove the 2 Phillips head screws from the fan switch located on the condenser fin at the top of the fridge. As the various components and wires become loose, we can scooch them off to the side, which will allow us to eventually slip the unit up and out of the fridge box. We're now down to the last few things that are holding this old cooling unit onto the refrigerator box. With a 5/16 bit, I now remove the 4 cooling unit mounting screws. 2 of those screws are lower down on the fridge, and the other 2 are up at the top of the condenser fins. And now I cut the tape around all 4 sides of the unit. You can see here that the unit is loose, however, all of these wires and water lines are in the way. So I've got to get these out and over off to the side so I can slip the cooling unit up and out of the fridge. As I lift the unit up, I can now slip the defrost hose through the old cooling unit down out of the way. I can also move these other cables off to the side, allowing a nice clean exit of the old unit. After I trapped Jenny in the bedroom, she made me do this by myself, so I carried the unit out by myself. I would recommend get a friend or a helper because it's kind of awkward and bulky, but if you're slow and steady, you can definitely get the unit out and make room for the new cooling unit. Here's a look underneath at the inside of the unit. These are the cooling plates which transfer the heat. Your new cooling unit will arrive on a pallet inside of a large cardboard box. There's also a sticker with an arrow pointing up on the box. It's important to either leave the unit flat on the pallet or stand it upright. Our cooling unit arrived the day before I planned to do the install, so I let it sit overnight standing up with the arrow pointing up, and that's actually ideal because it allows all of the coolant, any of the liquids inside of the tubes to drain back down. If you're unable to store the unit upright, you'll have to leave the fridge in place for at least 12 hours before you turn it on. Inside the box is another small cardboard box, and this contains all of the various parts and pieces we'll need to install. It comes with some paperwork with some instructions. You'll also find your warranty card inside there. This is a pigtail wire we'll use later, some spray insulation foam, a tube of thermomastic. You'll need a caulk gun to apply this later. There's also a small bag with self-tapping screws, a LP gas plug, and a fuse, as well as some foil tape. So here's a quick look at the new unit. Here I'm applying a bead of thermomastic on all 3 of the cooling plates. It's not very pretty, but we've removed the old thermomastic from the fridge box. It's now cleaned and ready for foam to be applied. Next, I apply 2 layers of the spray foam around the fridge box on top of the lip as shown. Hey, there's my helper. She came back to help me install the new cooling unit. With your helper, you'll want one person to feed the defrost hose through the new cooling unit while the other person lowers the new cooling unit down into place. It's important not to mess up the spray foam, which is currently wet, so we lower this unit down nice and easy. Inspect all 4 sides to verify the spray foam is completely filling and sealing the inside airspace. If you do find any gaps or holes like we did, you'll need to add more spray foam until they're all filled. After verifying all gaps are sealed, apply foil tape to all 4 sides, which will create a nice finished look to the new cooling unit. Now, one important tip here, you don't want to take too long wrapping the fridge up because this spray foam will eventually harden and settle. Before that happens, we need to get our 8 freezer screws and our 7 refrigerator screws installed. And that back cooling unit, it may have to be shifted a little bit. In our case, my wife Jenny went on the back. I gave her a pry bar to place underneath of the cooling unit to kind of wiggle it up and down, allowing me to get these screw holes to align. Once I had all 15 of the screws aligned and tightened, I no longer had to worry about that spray foam hardening. But it's just a really crucial time frame. You have to make sure you do this before that foam hardens. Now I will attach the new cooling unit to the back of the fridge using the provided self-tapping screws and by screwing through the pre-drilled holes on the frame of the cooling unit. Alright, so we've had our new fridge cooling unit for over a month now, and it's worked very well. What are your thoughts on the new fridge?
I think this is the first time that I've been able to make Tucker popsicles, and they are like legitimate popsicles where they're frozen all the way through, which is pretty exciting.
It's easy to take for granted residential fridges where the fridge is in the low 30s and the freezer's near 0 and just everything's nice and cold. A lot of RV fridges, or at least our old fridge, it was cool, but it was never cold. We were making ice in the trays.
Yeah, we would have to like fill them in the morning, and then the next morning we'd have ice. But now we are making ice, we're making popsicles, everything's chilly. Very nice.
Yeah, so the fridge is working exceptionally well, and our RV windshield has never been touched. It's intact. We didn't have to take any windows out. And that was honestly one of my fears, was taking the windshield out and then having issues with it down the road. You know, if it didn't reseal correctly or if it wasn't put back in correctly. So one less thing to worry about. We're able to also, this is less waste. We're reusing our fridge box. So as far as like, you know, sustainability and our impact, that's a lot less stuff we're sending to the landfill.
It's a little scary initially having to shop for new refrigerators in their entirety. That price point is...
Yeah, RV fridges are ridiculously expensive, at least for the unit we had. And yeah, it makes a residential fridge look so much more enticing because for like $1,000 you can get a nice fridge.
We were about ready to start ripping out cabinets and tearing our RV apart just to get a residential fridge in there. So.
But we do a lot of boondocking, a lot of dry camping off grid. Those residential fridges are known to be energy hogs, and it would be a big step backwards for us to, you know, as far as our ability to go off grid, because we do have a solar power system and we do have a lot of power on board, but the RV or the residential fridge would suck it down pretty quickly and that's a big factor. So we're very happy we were able to maintain our old fridge. It's now ice cold, and in fact the new compressor system is just like a residential fridge. So we kind of have, I feel, the best of both worlds. We have our super efficient old Norcold fridge, it's a Norcold 1200, and we also have now a DC compressor cooling system, which is what residential fridges use, and it's super efficient. So we're still able to have nice cold temperatures in our fridge even when we're off grid to some of these amazing places we go to. So at any point, please reach out to us in the comments below. Let us know any questions or thoughts you have. We are super happy with the new fridge. As I mentioned, it's been over a month now and it's operating very, very well. A huge thanks to JC Refrigeration for sponsoring this video, and we'll see you in the next video.